So shall we segue to legislative corner?
Yeah, let's do it. Legislative week in review.
I'm not going to get that right.
All right, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about in this legislative week in review was that the Supreme Court upholds Trump rules letting more employers deny contraceptive coverage. So this goes to, the whole argument that obviously Trump winning would make the court even more conservative, which makes it more dangerous. But I did think that it was important to talk about this. So it says the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld a broad expansion by the Trump administration of the pool of employers that can use religious objections to deny women insurance coverage for contraception. The ruling, which struck down a lower court decision, could deprive up to 125,000 women of contraceptive coverage, Justice Sonia Sotomayor warned during oral arguments in the case in May.
That's it, 125,000? That seems like a small number. Not that it's a small number for those women, but it just seems in the scheme of things, I would have expected it to be like in the millions.
I know, me too. But I think, she did say could deprive. So I think she didn't want to sound like she was being an alarmist or anything. Okay. So she, obviously these judges, they don't like to work in the extremes. They would rather work in the conservative, because that way it's harder to argue against their argument, right? Okay. So it says the Affordable Care Act passed under Barack Obama required employers to cover preventative care, a category including certain free of charge, allowing for some exemptions for churches and religious groups. Oh, and also this is not just for employers, but also for universities. So it would, which I think that's even more of a big deal, obviously, if you are denying contraception to people that are, at that prime age, I guess, right?
Are we talking like public universities only, or are all universities affected by Affordable Care Act? Would be everybody?
Well, yeah. So like, for instance, I know that when I was at Salem State, I was getting my coverage from university. So I'm not sure if that is for private universities. Yeah. I don't know how the insurance coverage works for.
But even if it's state universities, it's a hell of a lot of people affected.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it says corporations run by families with religious objections to covering the cost of contraception, one exemption from the law in a subsequent high-profile Supreme Court decision, Burrow versus Hobby Lobby, in 2014. But soon after Trump took office, his administration issued new, much broader exemptions, which the states of Pennsylvania and New Jersey challenged in court. Under Trump's rules, any nonprofit employer or any for-profit employer in a company not publicly traded could claim an objection of conscience and be exempted from offering plans that included coverage for contraception. Lawyers for the government in the case, Little Sisters of the Poor versus Pennsylvania, argued that no employer have bona fide moral objections to contraception would seek to take advantage of the exemption because health insurance plans that include contraceptive coverage did not cost more than other plans. Looking at this, I feel that this is not something that it's not like an ideological move done by the Trump administration. I feel like this is more so like Trump. I don't think it's ideological. I think, one, it's a bid for his voters, obviously, for those conservative voters, the ones that are more religious. Right. So that sect of his base. Sure. And it also plays to the fact that he's going against something that forth. Because, he just has to be the Obama basher. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Anything that Obama did, he's always got to do the opposite. And it doesn't even matter.
Oh, it's definitely personal with him. I think it actually started. There was like some press dinner where he was in the audience and Obama was like laying into him in front of the whole press corps and everything. And I think that got him. Yeah. I think that was the point at which he said, "I'm gonna do something about this and I'm gonna run," or something.
Well, before he I want to say in all of the years that that Obama was in office, he was one of the opponents of Obama. Like, he was everything that Obama did. He always had to come out with some sort of contradictory. So I don't know if it's that he was already thinking about running 8 years in advance or
Yeah, I
10 years
wonder.
in
Yeah,
advance,
yeah, because he did hit all that.
but
That
he's
yeah, he did.
definitely one of his biggest opponents.
Yeah, he did hit all that birth certificate stuff like early, and it's like, what was the point at that point when he wasn't really in politics at all? Yeah.
What, Trump?
Yeah.
No, yeah, Trump, yeah.
Yeah, but Trump, remember, he was interested in running in 2000 because the whole thing, Roger Stone was pushing Trump to run in 2000. So Trump was interested in the
Oh,
White
okay.
House going back quite a few years. I mean, not obviously not to the same extent, but I mean, he was looking at it.
Got it. Maybe, okay.
So maybe he had that in
Yeah, I
mind,
think that this
Yeah.
also sets it. I think this also sets a very dangerous precedent for finding ways for employers to be able to deny health insurance. Is going to offer health insurance, from the government, and it's going to be employer based. And now you're allowing for employers to actually, deny coverage of certain things. I think that that sets a very dangerous precedent.
Well, it's just attacking the
Yeah.
Affordable Care Act just because it's personal or for whatever reasons, and the Republicans never had their alternative plan, which they said they were going to have, right? And then they won the presidency and both houses of Congress, and nothing happened. So I just don't. It's a slippery slope and it's dangerous. But obviously, it just shows that we need to get away from the whole employer-based healthcare system. Because it doesn't make any sense. It
Right.
might have made sense in the 1950s, kind of, but now it does not make sense when people have multiple jobs. I mean, all the people who are losing their jobs because of this pandemic, they're going to lose their health coverage too, right? Because
Yeah.
we have employer-based health coverage. So, I mean, that just makes it more clear than ever that we need to have a single payer system.
Or not just the ones that have lost their jobs, but the ones that they have reduced hours to now they're really working a part-time job. And if you're working a part-time job, you're not eligible for benefits.
Right.
So
I mean,
that's
it's been
another
that
way
way.
that
I
they're
mean,
able to get
that's how
away with it.
Walmart operates. All these companies and Hobby Lobby and everything. I mean, we're only talking about the top people who get the health coverage, anyways, because the whole economic model has been moving to part-time employment to avoid having to pay healthcare, and that hurts the economy as a whole, right? So,
Right.
small employers don't even bother to give health coverage anymore because it's too expensive. Unless you have 50 employees or more,
Yeah.
you don't get a discount for health coverage, and it's ridiculously expensive. You can't afford it if you're a really small business.
Yeah, I just like if you were starting a country from scratch, the idea that you would mandate employers to provide health care, it's just so bizarre, right? I mean, it just like it hobbles the economy in such a big way. Small businesses, that's a huge thing they have to consider if they're going to start up. How they gonna fund something like that. If I'm as an employee, if I'm going to change jobs, I have to consider whether or not the next employer would cover my kid's dentist. I mean, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew a guy, like, this is like 20 years ago, but he was like a copy repairman. He worked for like a small company that probably had like 8 employees, and he got health coverage. And then they had a girl, and she had all kinds of medical problems, so it became
Right.
he had to stick with his job but there was a lot of tension between him and the employer because, like, their premiums are going to go way up and everything. And it was just a total mess. And so the employer can't spend time running their business. They have to spend time like working out all these issues that are going to come up, with crises, right, with employees, right? Or they have, and the
Yeah.
Cobra system. I mean, it's just a nightmare. Whereas
And
in
I know folks that they've had they had and luckily survived cancer, and now it's like, well, I really can't change jobs because the next employer is not going to, not going to want to pick up that risk or whatever. And it's horrific.
Right. And they actually, for my business, for example, I mean, I have, like 10 employees, but having the Affordable Care Act was really good for me because it allowed me to no longer have to pay for that premium. So what I did is I gave my employees, an increase in pay and said, you go out and get your own coverage through the exchanges. And that
Okay.
worked out a lot better. They got better coverage, lower deductibles, and it saved me money. So for me, it was a win.
Hmm.
It was definitely in the right direction. But getting back to Trump, I mean, I just think he's attacking it like on a not an ideological level, but just on a
Right.
personal.
Yeah, absolutely could be.
Right.
Personal
Because he's
level. Yeah.
petty. It's just
Yeah.
because he's petty.
Well, he's kind of. I mean, he said I saw some kind of soundbite, this week where he's like, "Well, if you don't like me, I don't like you." So it's all like. I
Yeah.
mean, he admits that it's just
Or
Yeah.
that he says, "I only attack people that attack me."
Yeah.
right.
It's always a tit for tat thing with him. So he's you can tell everything that he does is very
Yeah.
disingenuous.
I think it's definitely partly that, but I think there is also you touched on the fact that religious groups that support him.
Yeah.
This could be payback or pay forward or whatever for that support and to try and continue that support.
I remember that one of the things that he was under hot water for recently was because of that photo op that he did in front of the church, right? Where he was, what they did to the protesters using tear gas and all that to clear out the protesters. And it was all just for him to have that photo op in front of the church.
Right.
He's obviously playing to his base.
Right, but I think
Right.
he's losing some of that
And
support.
famously
losing
waving
some
the
of that.
Bible. Yeah.
He's losing some of that fundamentalist evangelical support, though.
Well, a lot of them are 60 and 70 years old, and they're going to be afraid to go out to vote during COVID. So
Right. That is where it's hurting him the most, right? Because it's the older voters that he did have like a good grasp on before, but now they're leaving him because of the way that he's handled all this COVID stuff. Because obviously it's the older generation that's actually being hurt the most by
yeah,
everything that's going on.
and Biden is a peer for those folks. To me, Biden might seem like he's obviously
They go play gin together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So assuming Biden wins, on day one, like with day one of when he takes office in January of 2021, I mean, how are you going to push Biden to get rid of, do single payer health care? I mean, I'm just like, how is that going to happen? You obviously got to have Congress, right? Like, I just see like, yeah, this is bad, but it's all like
Well,
petty
as long
little.
as Mitch McConnell is in the Senate, nothing is going to
Well,
anything
right,
that Biden is for. It's not nothing is going to come out of the House.
Assuming the
that is
Democrats win
actually
the
gonna
Senate.
pass the
Assuming the
Senate.
Democrats win the Senate. Let's say they have a situation like in 2012 again, where you have the White House and both houses of Congress are controlled by one party, and obviously there's more populist pressure than there was in 2012. Is it going to happen this time, or are we going to have to wait for the next round in 8 or 10 years? Is anything, we're going to get rid of this system and
I
push
think
for something?
I think he telegraphed. He told his financial corporate donors that nothing would fundamentally change.
Right.
I think we'll end up. He'll get in office. We'll see another thing like this silly. Russia paid the Taliban to attack U.S. soldiers, even though only 4 soldiers have been killed this year. You know that. And also it's BS. Like, why wouldn't the Taliban already be against soldiers who've been occupying their country for 20 years, right? Something like that will come up, and the media will fall in line to support it, and give you again. You'll be worried about yellow cake uranium or throwing.
Yeah, but don't you think there's going to be more pressure?
We'll go to war somewhere.
Do you think there's going to be more pressure from below? But all these people have lost their health coverage, saying like we really need to have some change. You don't think that's going to have any effect on, let's say on Congress, and then putting pressure on Biden to sign a bill, or do you think he's just going to veto it?
How long have we had 50 million food deprived, nutrition deprived children in the country and all that, right? I mean, somehow the things that really they should take care of and should be high on their list just aren't.
And if anything, what it would hopefully push for is for him to do something through executive order. And I am not a fan of ruling through executive order, but that is really, I feel, the only way that something would happen. And I just really, once he's in office, there is no pressure. Wasn't that the whole thing with Hillary Clinton in 2016? Is that they were saying like, oh, once we get her, TYT was famously saying this, right? That once we get her in office, that's when we're gonna hold her feet to the fire.
Yeah,
It's like,
which
once
is
she's
really,
already in office, what the hell does she care?
you have nothing on them at
Yeah,
that point.
there's
Yeah,
no
you have nothing.
leverage.
Yeah,
Your leverage is gone. It's
yeah,
just like how this time, Bernie and all of these Democratic, quote unquote, Democratic voters, they lost their leverage the moment that they said that it didn't matter who the nominee was as long as it's not Trump.
right. Exactly. As soon as
So
something like
so
that, yeah,
there is no pushing Biden anywhere because he has your vote regardless because he's not Trump. That, for
right.
a lot of these people, and it's unfortunate. That's just how it seems.